In today's episode, my guest is Ulrik Nerloe. There are many words to describe Ulrik. He is a people transformation expert, a chief energy officer, holistic mentor, a coach, energy facilitator, international bestseller as well, and public speaker. I encourage you to purchase any of his 2 books that he has published lately. One of them is The Life Bridge, and the other one is The Energy Path, where he explains the importance of connecting on a personal level and showing genuine interest in the people that we work with, not only for leaders, but for us as a part of an organization. At the moment, Ulrik is the Chief Energy Officer of his own company, Unify the People, where his mission is to change the world to a more insightful tomorrow by making people more conscious about the way they live their lives. Please join me to watch this interview. So Ulrik, thank you so much for your presence here in the YouTube channel named Humanocracy, the Future of Talent. And when I started to research about your work, your trajectory, I felt completely drawn to it. And I felt that I had to share your work with every single professional and human being out there. So for the audience to understand, your company, Unified People, your mission is to enlighten people in their search for meaning and true happiness by making them reflect and be conscious about how they choose to live their lives. Can you tell us more about your company?
So Unified People is 10 years old, and in the course of those 10 years, we actually had one mission from the beginning, which is still the same. And that's all about making people aware of the importance of whether we bring our hearts into the things that we do, which is also the reason why there's hearts everywhere, in my office and on my shirt and on my shoes. And I mean, this is the essence of everything. And I mean, the reason for the heart is designed as it is of course of a specific reason, because so many people are thriving towards the perfect. We want to look perfect. We want to have the perfect family. Everything needs to be perfect and shiny. But being perfect is just an illusion. There's very, very few things in the world that's actually perfect. And it's actually to discover the beauty there is of not being perfect. And I mean, there's so much negativity, bad thoughts, violence, wars still going on, and we need so much more love.
Definitely, you are completely right. And what exactly do you mean by reflecting on how do we choose to live our lives? What does it imply in your opinion?
So research has proven that up to 90 to 95% of what the average person is doing, thinking, feeling is unconscious today. We know as well that 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And approximately 80% of those are based on negativity, fear, or worries. Now, approximately 90% of the thoughts that you're having today, you also had yesterday. And then you can guess what you're going to think tomorrow. And this, I mean, the key word of where we are right now and moving forward is conscious awareness. Because if we want to change things, we need to become much more conscious. And before we become aware, we need to become conscious. And that could be like conscious of our own thoughts, our own feelings, our surroundings, our energy, what we like, what we dream of, everything of, I mean, most people know everything about the things they don't want, the things do not dream of, the things do not generate energy. But the transformation is to actually become conscious of the opposite. Because I do believe that what we think is what we get. Meaning, if we have these negative thoughts, if we only know what the things we don't want, that is what we are attracting.
Absolutely. I also comply fully with that vision. And in the end, it's all about awareness, right? And quite often we run through our days and we don't pay attention to what we think, what we feel. And I think that is very, very important.
I mean, I'm experiencing that people unconsciously are pushing a button every single morning. They're looking around and thinking to themselves unconsciously again, nothing turns on. And when they go to bed, they push the same button again, nothing turns off. That's their autopilot. That's the autopilot life where they might be aware, but if they're not conscious of they are aware, it has no value whatsoever.
Completely agree. Now let's talk a little bit about your book, The Energy Path, The Art of Leading with Love. It's about to be released, it's already released if I'm not mistaken. And
It's in Danish?
Yes. and we will later on place the link for the audience to purchase your book. But could you tell us what the audience could expect from your book?
So the energy path is a description of my philosophy. It's going to be published in English in a week or so, and it's very much based on making people go on a transformation, making them realize what a huge unutilized potential there's within us and around us. And energy is what's needed for driving us from A to B. No matter if it's a car or if it's us, we needed to sleep, we need to maybe have something to drink or some breakfast or something. A process needs energy, a company to run needs energy, the athletes needs energy. And we know, of course, when we talk about athletes or artists, concerts, musicians, then the concept of energy is completely crystal clear. We can sense it. Because energy, you can't hear it, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but you can feel it. And energy is so much as well present in the corporate world as it is with musicians and stuff like that. And this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years in Unified People, making people work consciously with the energy inside of themselves and around them. So it's basically by bringing people into the notion of my philosophy, which is I believe that whole people create whole companies. And we are so fragmented as people because of our unconsciousness. And energy is the recipe, and the art of leading with love. That's as well the ingredients for the recipe. Because if I do not understand how to lead myself with love, how can I ever lead you, Carla, with love? And everything starts with self-leadership. And this is one of the parts that we need to become much more aware of and conscious of when we lead people. Because how can we lead people if we never learn how to lead ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we get more into technical details, do you believe that energy is transferred throughout space? So for instance, if I wake up one day and I'm not at the right level of energy, that will be transmitted and it will reach other people.
So if we go into the science part of energy and the theories behind energy, I mean, all is indicating that Big Bang was the moment in the universe where energy was created for the first time. And I do believe, in my philosophy, my way of living, that the root of all energy is being generated from the universe. But nevertheless, I mean, what we look into is three interconnected energy circles that are so much depending on each other. It's personal energy, it's social energy, and it's global energy. Very brief. Personal energy is the one I'm responsible of. This is what I own. I can make the decision when I woke up 1.5 hours ago, how would I like to have my energy today? What kind of energy will I decide to work with all through the day? Now, right now, even though there's a monitor behind us, and I know we're going to get back to that, because of the dialogues we have had previously, you and I are already sharing a social energy. And when I'm contributing from my personal energy to your personal energy through our social energy, then we are starting to generate a regenerating system of energy where you're getting surplus and I'm getting surplus based on our both positive energy, which then again goes into the global energy or the universal energy. That's the energy we share with everything around us. And when they sense a positive energy of surplus based on the social energy, then they sense it and then send it back to you and I, and then it's regenerating, creating positive energy for you and I, that then we can invest into the social energy that goes back into the global energy, and so on and so forth. And this is I mean, this is so powerful, and very few people have actually recognized it. And I mean, energy is a magnetism, and it attracts everything that it wants to attract. And I know we're going to come back to talent attraction, and this is so powerful. But
yeah, and I think nobody wakes up in the morning thinking my energy affects society, affects the global community. We are not aware that we have tremendous impact on other people every single day.
I totally agree. I mean, we meet these people that completely drain us of energy, like suck everything out of us. And I know for sure, maybe one or two, but the majority of those people, they don't wake up and think in the morning, hey, I'm going to drain everybody from energy today. we don't think like that, but nevertheless, unconsciously, that is what is happening.
Yes, completely agree. What's the relation between energy consciousness and human connection?
Everything. I mean, your body consists of 6 billion energy cores that create your cell structure. And the chair you're sitting in is just an energy core that is generating the material you're sitting in, which is also the reason why a guy like Dr. Bruce Lipton is saying what we think affects our body's health. Because the thought is a brain wave that can be measured in what we call matter. Matter is the measurement of energy, as well as a feeling is a wave, energy wave that we can actually measure in matter, which means that our thoughts and feelings are just energy waves. And the connection between people, I mean, sometimes, Carla, you probably met a person who said the right thing, he or she did the right thing, but you get this feeling, there's something, there's something rotten going on here. And that's two things. That's our intuition that is generating intuition is generating a signal that goes into the brain. It connects the intuition, your gut feeling with the brain, and that's why your consciousness is popping up. But basically what happens underneath that is that you are sensing the other person's energy. You are actually calibrating it to what the person says, what the person expressed physically, and how the person is feeling. And if there's not a completely crystal balanced line between these things, which could be like you say one thing, but you feel different, then you actually sense these things. So the connection between people are completely interconnected with the energy. And you know, I mean, people may be very good friends, very good colleagues. I mean, I was visiting a customer of mine this week. I haven't seen him for 12 years, but energy was just completely back because our human connection through our love, through emotions, through energy is still intact, even though it's 12 years ago. So energy and human connections are so much depending on each other.
So you are saying that we can sense coherence in other people, right?
So there was a study done in the US 8 to 10 years ago where they discovered, it's a long story, short, these researchers discovered that 10% of the human communications are words, 20% are body language, but 70% is subconscious emotional communication. Now, I've done my study myself. This is a system we are born with. This is why when we have children, when they come and say, hey, daddy, are you okay? They looked at me, they listened to me, and they sense. And what we do as grown-ups and parents, we say, yeah, daddy's fine. And completely destroy this beautiful system that we've been born with because of us don't wanting to put our problems on our children, which of course we shouldn't. But we should just be aware of this 70% of emotional communication is the most wonderful tool because it enables us to actually sense what's going on in other people, which is what we call, why can't I recall that? Empathy. It's this is the tool and the dialogue for empathy. And yes, we can actually sense what's going on in other people.
Interesting. Now, then, why human connection is so important in life and at work?
I do believe that people connect with people, not just rows to rows. And this is what I actually write a lot about in the energy path. When we look at the organizations today, I mean, everybody knows what we are. Very few people know who we are. And one of my favorite questions, I think I actually asked you the same question the first time we spoke. I said, so Carla, who are you? And the majority, when you answer that question, are going through their CV, telling everything about what they are, but they actually never get to the point of telling of who they are. And this is the paradigm change that we need to change. I mean, I did an interview yesterday with a guy who is a specialist within artificial intelligence. And one of the keys to the future when technology and based as well on the fifth industrial revolution, which by the way has occurred, the fourth industrial revolution, we just went by that in 1.5 years due to COVID, which is all about digitalizing the world. The fifth is about connecting people with technology. And what we need to utilize from now on is actually being human, which means that we need to redefine our self-understanding of our identity. And the reason for that is that the majority puts their identity perception into what they are. I'm a lawyer. I'm a banker. No, you used to be a banker, but now your job is a computer. So who are you then? I'm a banker. No. You used to be a banker. And this is the dialogue and something that really we need to take seriously, because if we don't, we will have a humongous humanitarian crisis of people losing their identity, again, still based on only knowing what they are and not knowing who they are. So the importance of human connection in life in general, not just work, is so important. And that requires a completely different paradigm change for leaders and for us all, I would say.
Yeah, and that message relates as well very well with the channel, because it's all about human contribution. And I think that's the way to remain relevant in the upcoming years, right?
Yes, I agree.
Especially in difficult times like the ones we are living right now, it's easy to feel helpless, right? Uneasy, drawn to negative emotions, overwhelmed. Do you have any tips to overcome those emotions? Because sometimes we are not aware of them, but we just feel like we are not being ourselves.
So based on the numbers I gave before about the 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts, that has not become a smaller challenge, quite the opposite actually. So, I mean, it is a challenge, and a lot of people are very low on energy. They lost the sense of purpose, a lot of them. Loads of people are coming to work because of the human relation, not because of the job, not because of the manager, not because of the company, but it's the human connection. And of course, that is something that a lot of people are suffering from. And I will come back to it later on in the conversation, because I have actually quite tangible things that we can do for ourselves and when we are leaders as well. But again, so what can we do actually right now to figure it out? One of the things that I'm helping people with right now is to actually just write things down. I mean, there's a very huge difference between rational thoughts and feelings and irrational thoughts and feelings. And right now we have a huge challenge because it's irrational thoughts. Now, our rationality, we can never cure with rationality, sorry. And we know to a certain extent right now that the feelings that we are having right now, they don't make sense. I mean, we should feel something different. Yeah. Nevertheless, the feelings are still there. So the first thing is to acknowledge it's okay that I'm feeling like this, because that goes back to the art of leading with love, because accepting it's okay, I have these feelings, is also an acceptance of I am okay as I am. I am good as I am, which is taking a lot of pressure off. And the problem with our rational thoughts and feelings is they're putting pressure on us because you want to get rid of them, but they're still there. So the first thing is accept that they're there. Second, write them down. Take a piece of paper, empty your thoughts into your heart with all the things you can do, and put the paper aside. Take it out again a few days afterwards to look at it. Write things more down. And then actually you can start to, at a certain point, remove them. Third, very important thing, go into a mode of curiosity and ask yourself the question of what makes me happy, what generates my energy. And it can be the simple and smallest things of looking out the window, staring at the beautiful spring and the forest and the lake, which is just outside of my window. It could be having an amazing cup of coffee, actually appreciating and not taking it for granted, really discovering what are the things that I'm taking for granted, which actually is making a difference to me. There's so many things we take for granted. Whereas when we start a curiosity process and seek the answer to what makes me happy, what gives me energy, and what is it that I'm taking for granted, that I actually could put my focus into, then we are slowly, and notice the word slowly, it is a slow process, but we are then changing the negative path and moving to a much more positive path.
Interesting. We take so many things for granted.
We
I
take
believe.
ourselves for granted. We take our health for granted. Just look at, we took our freedom for granted, and suddenly the globe turned off. I mean, and locked down. And we take our families for granted, our freedom of speech for granted. And we just have to remember one thing: what you are taking for granted, there's other people that's praying for that. And this is so important. And I teach my children that every single day. Well, not maybe, they're pretty tired of hearing me saying that, but it's so important when I want to kiss them goodnight. Big teenagers, Dad, forget it. I don't want to have a night kiss. I was like, you know what? There's children around the world, and the only thing that they're dreaming of before they go to bed is having a dad coming and kissing them. Fine. I don't want to kiss though. But nevertheless, that's how it is.
Definitely. Now, feeling happier might seem at first a fluffy concept. What is the meaning of happiness for you?
Very simple definition for me is the freedom to be able to say yes, and the freedom to be able to say no. I mean, I am experiencing so many people that every single day are saying, yes, fine, yes, fine. And the inner dialogue is like, what? Did you just say yes? You should say no to this. Or the opposite, they say, no, I can't. And the inner dialogue says, so why are you saying no? You should say yes to this. You should seize the moment and do this. So for me, the true happiness is coming from the feeling of feeling free. Now, I mean, when you ask this question to most people, what makes you happy? Most people would say my wife and kids, my husband and kids, my family, my dog. I had one woman she was very lonely. She said, "Can I say my goldfish?" And I said, "Of course you can say your goldfish." And that's of course true, but it's just a part of, not just, but it's a part of our foundation. This is why we can run back and we can relax. And actually discovering in reflective curiosity thoughts, what actually is much more profound in what makes me happy is so much needed for most people. I spent like 3 or 4 years to find the answer. And my answer is, every time I'm able to share my knowledge and insights based on my own journey, that is contributing to another person's development, that is truly making me happy.
Beautiful
No matter
definition.
if it's 5 centimeters or 500 meters that change, this is what generates my energy and really, really, really makes me truly happy.
Very nice definition, Ulrik. I really liked it. In our last conversation, you talked about a spiritual dimension of leadership, which I had never thought of it, to be honest. So what does it mean, the art of leading with love, and how do we execute on that in the world, right? Because I feel that the business environment, especially, is so competitive. It kind of requires from you to be aggressive sometimes to reach your goals. So how a leader can lead with love?
So we already slightly touched the point. I mean, every time I do a keynote speak, or every time I'm working as an advisor for top management, board of directors, small companies, big companies, entrepreneurial companies, small departments, huge stages with lots of people used to doing keynote speaks. One of the first questions I always ask people is, do you believe that what you think is what you get? So you think big, you get big. You think small, you get small. You think it's going to be a great day, you're going to have a great day. And if you think it's going to be an awful day, you get an awful day. The majority of all people I'm asking that question is saying, yes, I believe so. That is what we define as principle of attraction. Some people call it laws of attraction. In my book, I describe it as principle of attraction because it's not a law, it's a principle. That's a different story. Now, if we already there agrees that this is what we are able to attract, then we should definitely change our mindset on our behaviors and our ways of working with strategies and developing our companies. Because it's all about attraction. We don't want to hunt. We don't want to, we want to get our people we want to get them to stick to the company. No, you don't want to get them to stick to the company. You want to set them free because we are so much emotion driven. We do the things we love to do. So why not make an environment and a company culture where people love to come, where people love to share their energy, there's love, their presence, there's awareness. And as well, when we look at, I mean, looking into statistics of working with strategies in companies, for the last 10, 15 years, we've only become worse and worse in implementing them. And the biggest challenges that the top management have in the majority of all companies is actually getting people on the same path. And the reason for that, I have experienced, is that strategy is a thought, but we know that the majority of all decisions are taken in the limbic brain, which is the part of the emotional brain. And when I work with directions of companies, I work with dreams, because when we describe a dream, we go into the heart, telling about it. And when we start to share the dream, it's much more easy to get people to sense it. And when people feel it, we actually can relate to it. And when we can relate to it, we can put our heart to it into it. We can identify ourselves with it, which means that we are generating a higher purpose, something which is much more important than just me, which means that we're taking ego out. We go from only looking at ourselves to looking into the unification of the group we are in. And when we look into the future and looking into gig economies, looking into the circular systems that are rising right now, where we need to understand that attraction is everything. Talent attraction is everything. You know, we're going to talk about it in a minute. But this is all what's about. And I said before, energy is magnetism. And we need to become much better attracting clients, talents, right people in right positions, honesty, transparency. And we can wrap all that into all the aspects of spirituality or holistic thoughts, because everything is connected and everything is depending on each other. And just to round it up, I was asked 5 or 6 years ago what I would think would be the definition of the future winners. And I replied, the one that masters the synergies from the energies will be the one that shapes the future. Because everything is energy, wow. And we need to find the synergy in the energy to define the future. We're not going to win in the future. It's an infinite game. It's an infinite loop. But we need to shape the future. And that's why I'm talking about spirituality and holistic thoughts within leadership.
Wow, that was powerful.
Thank you.
Now, when we think about the future of talent, the first thing that comes to our minds is technological transformation. That's what we hear the most about, digital or technical skills. But what else? How will we be relevant in the future, right? In a future with less human connection, by the way. So how we as humans will be still relevant?
So less human connection is an assumption. And assumptions are very often mistaken, I would say. So we actually, in my point of view, should have much more human connection than we ever experienced. Why? Because the cognitive part of the job that we've been doing, things that have routines, calculation aspects. Again, artificial intelligence is about patterns and synergies. And artificial intelligence is so much more talented in working with these things, which means that we are left to be just beings, human beings. Now, the challenge is that human beings are at the moment more human doings or human becomings, which means that we need to go back. We need to reconnect to the essence of being, because if we don't, we will lose. And when we look into exactly the transformational world, we touched it a little bit before. So the fifth industrial revolution is all about human beings. We will not have to think about technology. Let the IT department and those guys who are amazing work with those areas, let them worry about that. We need to definitely much more become aware and conscious of how will we utilize the potential which is unutilized for human beings. And what I do when I work as a mentor for on a one-to-one scale for CEOs and leaders and people in general, what I do is actually to show the path into the unutilized potential. And what I always ask is, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you utilize your potential? And people often say 3, 4, 5, but in that area. And then I asked them the question, how much do I utilize my potential? And people are like, oh, you're a full 10 or you're a 9. And I'm just replying, no, I'm a 5. And people are like, what? Are you a 5? Yeah, I'm a 5. Why? Because our potential development is only a journey of transformation. And all journeys from A to B depends on energy, which is energy comes from the universe. The size of the universe is infinite. Thereby, the universal energy is infinite. My potential as human being is infinite. So it's a sprint. We are constantly opening up new potentials. And when I've seen people that I work with, it's amazing to see how big the unutilized potential is in every single one of us. And that is what we need to release from now on and forward.
Yeah. Talking about that idea of unleashing your potential, a good metaphor to me is that we are running through life with the brake on, or at least that's how would I represent it in my mind.
I fully agree. I mean, it's all about setting ourselves free, and freedom for someone is something which is amazing. For others, it's something which is very scary. But the first thing is to understand that we need to get much better balance in self-confidence and self-esteem. Right now, the majority of all people have higher self-confidence than self-esteem. The challenge with that is that when we have a lot of self-confidence, we can persuade the whole world, I'm amazing to what I do. But if we have no self-esteem, we do not believe anything of what we are actually trying to persuade the world about. Which means that we are often our own biggest criticizer. We never appreciate ourselves. We don't send ourselves love. We don't fill ourselves up with positive energy. We don't acknowledge ourselves. We are actually just hindering ourselves to be. Whereas if we would actually go in every single organization, into school systems, into kindergarten systems, and work with people's consciousness on how to balance self-esteem, self-confidence, love for ourselves, we will have a completely different world.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how would you differentiate self-confidence from self-esteem? Because they might seem very similar to each other.
So I actually just explained what it is. But I mean, if you have lots of, when you have a lot of self-confidence, I can go out in the world out here and I can tell every single one that I'm really good at working with people. That's when I have my self-confidence. If I don't believe that's the truth, it's because I have too low self-esteem. Because it's like when you sit in a meeting and you are listening to yourself, and when you are observing yourself, where you are trying to persuade people or telling people something, either you're a leader or your mom or your dad or your whatever, then you're sitting on the same side as the others, just looking at you, criticizing. Ha! Look, I mean, you can't even pronounce things right. Ha! Do you really believe what the things you're saying? And we constantly, with low self-esteem, are seeking all the things where we can criticize ourselves, just confirming we are not good as we are. This is also why the first thing I do every time I work with people is to give people a task, which is look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself loud, I love myself, I am good as I am. And just doing that is something which for some people could take a year just to say it the first time. Other people, like, I had a client last week, he came like, yay, I've been saying it for 2 weeks, 3 times a day, and I love it, and I love myself, and I love that I'm getting these tools because it's changing everything. And another client said, Ulrik, I know you asked me to do this for half a year, and I get to, I love, and then that's it. And I would say the majority would be like that. We don't think of ourselves as somebody we love. And it's nothing to do with ego. It's only to do with actually appreciating self-love for self-leadership. It's actually just to sense that I'm good as I am. And the challenge with that is that when we work with leaders, I would say that 70 to 80% of all leaders, they spend up to 80% of their resources, time, energy, consciousness, awareness, in their daily work of leading themselves. because they never learn how to lead themselves. They never spend the time really to understand who am I and how do I lead myself? How do I fill myself up with love? How do I fill myself up with energy? And only leave the pure rest for the organization. Whereas when I've been working with them for full scale, full management, extended management team, maybe 50 people working on their awareness, working on their behaviors, working on their stories that they keep telling themselves that are hindering them to move forward into their unutilized potential. Then they start to change things, which means that suddenly it flips, which means that they're spending 20 to 30% leading themselves because they know the answers and leaving 70 to 80% to the employees. What happens to the employees? They are overthrilled because they are suddenly getting energy, awareness, consciousness, presence, which is all about leadership.
Yeah. Now, what are the challenges and threats that we as human beings should be aware of when we think of future?
I think, well, there's a lot of things. Dalai Lama was in a session some years ago. I was not there, but a friend of mine was there. And he was asked, what do you think is the biggest threat towards the world? And the way that he reacted towards that was by saying back, what do you think? And people said pollution, nuclear war, political systems, financial problems, and so on and so forth. And then he just replied, in my humble opinion, it's missing human insights. That is the biggest challenge here. I believe that's the correct answer. We should definitely become much more conscious in the way that we are living our lives. And that is the biggest threat. Because with the systems coming in, with the artificial intelligence coming in, with the marketing way of actually moving our behaviors, if we don't get to the point where we are much better at reflecting, asking ourselves, does this make sense? Does this contribute to my values? Does this generate energy? Then we will just be one limitation for ourselves. And I do believe that is the key. That's a huge possibility, but it's also a huge challenge if we don't do anything about it. And it starts with us.
Absolutely. And what are the 3 things that you would advise to any professional out there right now?
Right now, and I love the question that you're coming up with here, Carla, because this is so important. Right now, we have 2 paths to walk at. The first one would be disaster, getting actually even more things to fall apart. The other one is to move ourselves into a completely different paradigm where everything, the majority maybe, starts to make much more sense. 3 things that we should do. We should start right now, today, by asking curious questions for ourselves, and if you're leaders, for your employees, of what are your needs? Our habits have been completely canceled, changed, redefined after 1.5 years with COVID. There are a lot of people who are actually seeking for answers that they do not have. That requires a massive intensified focus on asking these curious questions of what is actually my needs. And one of my favorite quotes is treat people different to treat them equal. And right now, that is what we should do. We should redesign our organizations, our cultures, taking the best from the past, and in a joint transformation, leaders and employees redefine how would the future cooperation, culture, business look like organizational-wise. That's the first thing. Then we need to tell the stories. We need to gather people and have sessions where people can tell how are they? How have it been? What have COVID done? How has it affected you? And where are you right now in those thoughts and feelings? Meanwhile, we do that. We need to tell the stories right as top management. We cannot just assume that we can go back to where we came from, because we can't. We need to tell the stories of explaining what we are coming back to as employees is a different thing that we left. Why? Because people are bringing energy into the companies and people haven't been in the companies, which means that the feeling that we are used to have is not there. Now that's a huge opportunity, but we can redefine the feeling we want to have because it's all about energy. That's why we need to start with understanding the personal needs. Last but not least, energy aware and energy consciousness is the last thing. And they are, of course, all connected. Because if we are curious, if we understand the needs, if we tell the stories, we let go of bad energy. And if we actually start to create a path for the organization on a top management level that is supported by the organization, then it's generating, again, new energy. And then we need to start to sense, feel, and aware and appreciate the energy because we cannot take it for granted.
Great. Well, Ulrik, thank you so much for the advice as well for all the audience. And again, thank you so much for your time, especially on a weekend. Really enjoyed this interview and very valuable. We'll be quoting for the audience the link of your book right here. So yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was a beautiful interview.
Thank you so much. I highly appreciate being on the show. Thank you so much. You're doing a fantastic work and we definitely need to stand together, all of us. Yes. We want to change the world for a better place.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks a lot, Ulrik. Have a beautiful weekend.
Same to you.
Bye. 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 Bye.